What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 270 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. This is the Hot Tags edition of the week, where I'm going to be breaking down some of the current events, rumors, news, and anything else that I find interesting going on in the world of professional wrestling from the past few days. As always, I'm your host, Tony Mango, and we're going to get started right now with something that's not the main topic, but we're going to save that a little bit to later on. We're going to go with Total Divas. I'm not really all that much into Total Divas. I haven't actually watched the past couple of seasons because I just couldn't anymore. I tried my hardest, tried my damnedest, couldn't really get into that show. It's too reality TV, which for the people that love reality TV, I'm sure it's fantastic. I know a couple of people that are into Total Divas, but not into WWE, oddly enough. And I know some people that are kind of watching both, but majority of the people I know, usually wrestling fans, not a big fan of it, and I have to agree with that. But if you are a fan of it, you would be interested to know that Nikki Bella has now officially become an executive producer of the show. That is somewhat surprising that it's not both Nikki and Brie, although maybe Nikki's just more hands-on. Brie's got her other stuff that she's doing. She wants to focus more on being a mom, and Nikki is more career-oriented, whatever the case may be, I don't know. Nikki Bella, though, is, of course, one half of the Total Bellas brand, and they want to do more shit when it comes to that, so it makes a lot of sense that way. But if she's going to be having some kind of creative control over this, kind of interested to see what storylines come out of it. You would assume if she's an executive producer, she's going to have some kind of pull, and she's going to want to be involved in some interesting things, and they're going to do some more promotion with her, and they're going to, revolve it more around Nikki Bella than anybody else. But it already is a Nikki Bella show for the most part, even though we've got Paige, we've got, who's on it now? Naomi, Renee, Lana, Maurice. Is that it? I'm not missing anybody, right? Maybe I am. I don't know. But, I mean, the other thing is executive producers aren't necessarily as powerful as some people would tend to think. It all sort of depends. I mean, you can be an executive producer for something and you do jack shit. You're literally just somebody who is like an honorary production assistant of sorts. Look at Stan Lee. If you follow the Marvel movies and stuff, you know Stan Lee is the creator of a lot of those different comic books from back in the day. He created Ant-Man, he created Spider-Man, etc., etc., but he doesn't actually do anything for the movies. The cinematic universe right now operates under Kevin Feige and a bunch of other people, Louis D'Esposito and whoever the director is, some of the writers, that kind of stuff. But Stan Lee is still listed as an executive producer because the name executive producer doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's not the same as director or even like the writers. You can be a credited writer on a show or a movie, and you really didn't do all that much. You just kind of pitched a few ideas, you polished up the script a little bit, you suggested a couple other additions, and then they credit you as a writer or so. So an executive producer is even more on the flexibility side of things because you can be somebody who just has more stake involved, and maybe that's one of those things that she negotiated with her contract for. It was like, you know what? If I'm going to be on another season of Total Divas, I want to be an executive producer. I want to get a producer credit on my name. I want to be able to say I've done some kind of production work on a TV show in case I want to do my own spinoffs. And then, that kind of greases the wheels a little bit. They want her on the show as an actual performer, one of the cast members. They give her an executive producer thing. She might not have that much pull, but she gets what she wants. They get what they want because they get her still on the show and they don't have to spend that much more money, that kind of a thing. Whatever the case may be, it's interesting enough that Nikki Bella is an executive producer, which also means that they are definitely going to do another season, probably 2 more, maybe even more than that. God knows what they've been doing on the show because I just have not paid any attention whatsoever, and they haven't been making it full-on storylines. Oh, Natalya is on the show, too. I forgot to mention Natalya. Yeah, that's one of the storylines they're doing right now. So, okay. I always forget about Natalya. I would assume this show's sticking around for at least a little while longer. And if Nikki Bella's a part of it, it'll be really interesting to see if she ends up pulling some different strings next time around. If the next season has a lot more Nikki Bella in it, you know why. If it's got Nikki in some crazier situations, but she's not hogging the spotlight, maybe she was just bored and she pitched a bunch of ideas of some other things to do or something. If you guys watch the show, though, make sure that you let me know what you think is going to happen when it comes to this. And when the next season comes around, let me know what's going on with it, because I'm sure I'm not going to be watching it. And, of course, when it comes to leaving the comments and stuff below about what's going on with this stuff, it applies to all the other ones as well that we're going to be talking about here. And, just drop the comments below and do all that kind of stuff. I shouldn't really need to specify that, but sometimes people forget that exists. I don't know why. Let's talk a little bit about Tough Enough. One of the contestants from that season, this past season, which was 2 years ago now at this point. Goddamn. Mada, if you remember him, he was the big Egyptian guy. He has been released from WWE. He said that he made a decision to focus more on family, and it just wasn't working out and all that kind of stuff. So no real surprise here. The details aren't coming out either about whether he was kind of pushed out or he chose to leave, but I would assume it's sort of mutual. He's been a part of the NXT developmental system for a little while now. We haven't seen him. He didn't win the Tough Enough season. Now, that was Josh, and we haven't seen Josh either. That's pretty suspicious. But at least he won. Now, Sarah Lee was the other person who won, and she ended up leaving because she got pregnant. Wesley Blake is responsible for that. Hat tip to you, sir, for being able to pull somebody way out of your league, which we haven't seen Wesley Blake in a long time either, or Buddy Murphy for that matter. What the hell have they been up to? I don't know. But the whole situation with Sarah Lee is different because obviously somebody who's pregnant isn't going to be able to wrestle, so they just go, you know what, fine, if you're pregnant, just go ahead and we'll not renew this contract and we'll figure this out later on if we want to. Josh not showing up, it's a little bit weird that he isn't. Mada has been doing even less. So for him to not be a part of this grand sweeping movement that they've been doing with different people from NXT over to the main roster, and then the developmental lower subcategories to the main NXT roster, like the Oni Lorkins and Steve Cutler and what's the Noah Paches or something, I think is his name. Kona Reeves now. Like, he's somebody who's going to be coming up eventually. Dan Matha at some point has to be. Even Killian Dane is somebody who was just in developmental, and now he's a part of Sanity. So Mada was never a part of any of this stuff. He was not factored in at all. We've seen Tino Sabatelli and Riddick Moss in the tag team tournament, the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. We've seen people show up on house shows. We've seen them backstage in segments, jobbing on the NXT episodes. A lot of different things that you can be used for on NXT, but Mada wasn't used for any of them. So I assume what was going on here, of course I don't know for sure, it's all speculation, is that Mada wasn't progressing enough. They probably sat down, talked to him, and said, like, yo, look, it's not working out. You didn't win Tough Enough because you weren't skilled enough and popular enough and whatever. And you haven't, in these past 2 years or year and a half or however long it's been, made enough of a progression to make us think that you are really worth the time and effort. Do you think you're worth the time and effort? And he probably realized, nah, it's not for me. He's going to go do something else. He was a part of, I think, like a training facility or something before. Like, he might have had his own place, or he was a head trainer or somewhere or something like that. Maybe he was like in the supplement game or whatever. I don't know. A lot of the people that do that kind of stuff, they do a lot of the same things. So if he's a personal trainer and he can make his living off of doing something like that, and if he enjoys that, hey, you know what? If you got a family, as long as you're able to pay for the family members that you need to take care of and all that, if you're enjoying your job on top of that, that's great. And if Mada doesn't work out when it comes to WWE, then if he's happy, he's happy. If WWE really, really wanted to keep him, I'm sure they would have kept him around, and they would have offered him enough money that he would have been able to justify it. And if he would have really, really wanted to stick around, and it would have been financially acceptable to be able to do that, I'm sure they would have figured out something. But I got a feeling this is just one of those things. Both sides agreed. It's just better to move on. We probably will never see him come back again, but we might. I don't know. And he might wrestle in the indies now and again if he gets the itch to do that. And, you know, if a random indie promotion's going to promote some normal random indie guy, and they have him go up against tough enough contestant Mada, guy beats Mada and ends up boosting their credibility, that could be a good thing for the future. He makes a quick payday, doesn't bust his ass constantly and get hurt all the time, and it could end up working out better for everybody. So, adios, Mada. I am not too shocked about it, but hopefully it all works out in the end. What else we have here? WWE 24 WrestleMania Dallas. It was just on after Monday Night Raw, and if you haven't checked it out, I sincerely suggest that you do. I thought it was really a great special. They had a lot of cool things talking about the backstage scenarios that happened with WrestleMania. The Zack Ryder story was cool. You got to see him talk a little bit about the Intercontinental Championship and how much that meant to him, not only winning the title, which is kind of crazy, but this was the first time that he ever actually heard his entrance theme played at WrestleMania, and that was a big deal for him. There was a nice little spot where he was saying about the whole thing with him taking a picture with the Intercontinental Championship that Razor Ramon had, and then now that he's got the title, Razor Ramon's able to take a picture of his Intercontinental title and that kind of a thing. That was sort of cool. There was also stuff about the New Day, a lot of things about the New Day and their progression from being booed out of the building, essentially, from the first WrestleMania that they were on as the New Day, and it just wasn't working out all that well. And then this time around, they're getting all the special treatment. They're coming out with a box of cereal, and there's a little bit of a story with Xavier Woods talking about his original idea, which is going to have this van with like ass cheeks for the back doors, and then these fire shooting trombones and all this other kind of crazy stuff. There's a lot of cool backstage things with Triple H and Shane McMahon and all that. Really, if you are into any of those kind of things, then I got to assume you're probably going to enjoy it too. Those have been my favorite episodes of WWE 24, and I'm not a big fan of the ones where, like, I think it was Booker T or Big Show, where they were just sort of doing generic exposés, which those don't work with the 24 gimmick anyway. I mean, I like the idea of let's record over a 24-hour period and just talk about that. It at least goes with the title. But those seem more special to me. I still wish that they would call it like Backstage Pass or something like that, but whatever. I'm getting bogged down in semantics and stuff here. In general, I thought that it was cool. I thought it was interesting. It's one of those things where it was maybe an hour long, maybe an hour and a half or so. I didn't even clock how much it was because I just put it on in the background, started working on stuff, and then I found myself just flat out watching it. And it's not a long watch when it comes to being boring or whatever, unless you find that stuff boring, and then of course it is. But I thought that this was the nice supplemental material that we get on the WWE Network, and it doesn't sort of insult your intelligence, and at the same time doesn't expose too much either, kind of. It's that real nice happy medium. So I love that kind of stuff, and if you like that kind of stuff, definitely go check that out. Don't let that skip by, especially now. We're leading to the road to WrestleMania. You're going to get those feels all stirring up again and all that, and this is a good way to kind of kick things off and everything. Although I'm kind of curious, we haven't heard any announcements about that Slammy Award thing. We were supposed to be getting maybe the Slammy Awards sometime around WrestleMania, and they're treating it like that doesn't really exist anymore. I don't know if they're going to do it afterward, if they're going to do it beforehand. Pay attention for the next couple of weeks. I mean, we might get that in March after Fastlane when they really don't know exactly what to do, and it's like the week after Fastlane or something. I don't know. Side note, that was just completely off the beaten path right there. I don't know why I mentioned that. But let's talk about the Royal Rumble. These are two of the three other main topics that we're going to talk about tonight. One thing here is that they used these carts at WrestleMania that we didn't see on camera, but people took pictures and they posted it on their Instagram accounts and Twitter and stuff. The big men, Braun Strowman, Big Show, Big E, Bray Wyatt, Mark Henry, they were filmed running or jogging to the ring, and then they cut away, showed the people in the ring, and then apparently they hopped on top of these like little golf cart looking things, and somebody drove them to the ring instead of walking all the way down. And that is so odd to me. Like, what? Why? I mean, I know you probably don't want them to get blown up, but if they're going to get blown up just by walking to the ring or lightly jogging to the ring, it's the Royal Rumble. They're not running in there and like immediately going full blast and fighting 100 people for the next half hour or hour, whatever. Most of them are getting in there, they're hitting a couple moves, and then they're sort of taking a break again because within the next 30, 40 seconds, another guy's going to come out, and everybody's focused on the clock, and everybody's, ready looking at the entrance ramp to see who's coming out next or whatever. But that little cart things, they looked so ridiculous. Like Big E in particular, just kind of hanging off the side, and arm up in the air, just sort of like, all right, well, here I am being paraded around like the Pope or the, I don't know. That was awkward. It kind of reminded me a little bit of those little rings that they used to have to bring people to the ring at WrestleMania. They did it with like Andre and a couple other people along the lines. And I don't remember which events they were, but they were like the very early ones. And I assume that was just for like the pomp and circumstance of it. But maybe that was also to make sure that they didn't walk the whole friggin' way down. And I don't know, if you got to worry about somebody like a Bray Wyatt or a Braun Strowman walking to the ring, well, then you might need to start telling these guys to get their conditioning up a little bit. I'm just saying, I'm not one to talk. You know, you give me my asthmatic tendencies and my lack of athletic skill and my zero interest in doing this kind of shit, and of course I'm going to get blown up going to the ring like that, but these guys are athletes and they should kind of be able to do that. It's a little bit strange to me. And that's not the only thing with the Royal Rumble to talk about, though. We have to talk about the Royal Rumble predictions contest. The results are in. I figured them out over the past day or so, and a lot of people got a lot of things correct that were a little bit of surprise. Not many people got some of the other things that we all thought were guarantees, because they changed up quite a bit when it came to this Royal Rumble. There was a tie when it comes to Ross and myself, but for last place. I did awful on this one. Man, this is what I got. Ross too. We got 4 points between all the possible points that were available. And if you don't know, the way that the system was with the scoring system, you got a possibility of 5 points for each direct hit on an entrance. If you got one person off, like you thought somebody was going to be number 1 and they were number 2, or, well, even better off, if they were number 2 and you guessed them at number 1 or number 3, that kind of a thing, because it could be on either side, then you only get 1 point. 5 points if you got a direct hit, though. There were 2 points available for each of the things when it comes to the winner, the Iron Man, the shortest time, and the most eliminations, and each member of the final 4 that you guessed correctly were also worth 2 points. So you could have gotten a total of 8 points for the final 4. You could have gotten 8 points for the winner, eliminations, that kind of stuff. And then you could have gotten 150 points for all the direct hits of the entrance thing. So we're looking at 166 possible points that you could have been getting here. And I got 4. That's awful. Now, granted, the winner of the whole thing didn't do 166 points. I mean, it would pretty much be impossible to get that many things correct. The winner, who I'm going to announce in a little bit, had 27 points. And it was actually kind of a tight race towards the top there. 27, 26, 25, that kind of a thing. But man, 4 points. This is all that I got correct. I got Braun Strowman for the most eliminations. I got Sami Zayn as a margin entry hit. I put him at number 7 and he came out at number 8. And then I got Cesaro as a margin entry. I put him at 18 and he came out at 19. Everything else I got wrong. Some of it not too far off. Like Big Cass, I think I had at like 4 and he was number 1 or number 2 or number 1. And you know, the kind of stuff like that. Of course it bugs the hell out of me when I see that stuff, but well, it's all for fun. So Ross and I, man, we suck. Some of the other things to talk about, though, of course, the winner of the Royal Rumble was Randy Orton. The only person that guessed that correctly was Billy Prickett. 7 people went with The Undertaker, 2 for Sami Zayn, 2 for Samoa Joe, 2 for Chris Jericho, 1 for Braun Strowman, etc. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. So only one person out of all the people that were trying to guess the winner correctly got the winner correct. I mean, Billy made the smart choice here by going with what the betting odds said, and a lot of these times the betting odds are right, so we should probably listen to them in the future. Betting odds when it came to the shortest amount of time really were the ones that nearly everybody got correct. I didn't. I thought I'd go against the grain. People went with James Ellsworth, and he indeed was. He only had, I think, 12 seconds, maybe 15. And I thought they were going to end up just keeping him for a little bit longer than that, and it would have gone to somebody like a Jinder Mahal or whatever, but we got some other surprises in the mix, and then that sort of changed everything around and all that. So nearly everybody got that one correct, which that already boosted everybody far up above me. The longest time was Chris Jericho. He had 1 hour and 13 seconds, which means that he's now the man with the most cumulative time throughout his entire Royal Rumble career. He just surpassed Triple H. Triple H was at the top before. He had 3 hours, 59 minutes, and 37 seconds. Now I'm looking at my list here. Jericho is now at 4 hours, 56 minutes, and 12 seconds. Nobody guessed it correct, though. Most people went with Sami Zayn, and he was the second highest up, so you guys almost got it. Second choice was Seth Rollins. I was one of those people that picked Seth Rollins, and he didn't even show up on the card at all, let alone in the Royal Rumble, let alone doing something important in the Royal Rumble. So there goes my, I'll figure your plan out, WWE shit. The most men eliminated, Braun Strowman at 7. 12 people got that correct. Although some people putting down the wrong typos and stuff. I don't know how it's hard for everybody to type these things out. There's Braun Strowman and I think like Bram Strowman or something like that. Strowman at different points. Dolph Ziggler, so I can't remember who it was. Somebody typed Dolph really weird and all that. And if I wouldn't have paid attention to that, you guys wouldn't have had your points counted, because I did this through a more automated system, and they were coming up with all these flaws, and I just changed all the names to all the things that were wrong and all that. So, you got to listen to the rules, everybody. Jacob hedged his bet by saying Goldberg and Strowman would tie, so he only got 1 point for that out of the 2 possible points, because that's what happens when you split. If you would have gotten them right, you would have gotten 2 points for both of them. But since you bet, it's kind of that double down sort of a thing, you know what I mean? Final 4 was Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, and Chris Jericho. Nobody got the final 4 correct. Billy got 2 of them correct, though. He had Orton and Jericho, and that was the most amount of people that got that correct. Most people did not assume that Roman Reigns would be in the final 4, or maybe even the Royal Rumble at all, or that Bray Wyatt would. Some people had Orton, some people had Jericho. 1 or 2 people, I think, had Orton, Wyatt, I mean. But I'm not going to break down all of the 1 to 30. Instead, there is a link in the description below where you guys will be able to see the chart that has the breakdown of everything, of all the different guys that you got correct with the margin hit, or with a direct hit, or any of the other competitors and that kind of stuff. But the winner of the whole thing, with 27 points, Kalen. Congrats, Kalen. You got that correct. If you want to know what he got correct, his breakdown goes as follows. He got James Ellsworth for the shortest time, Braun Strowman for the most eliminations. He got 1 point in the final 4. Not too sure exactly who he guessed now. Let me double check that. Kalen had guessed correctly that the final 4 would include, let's see, Chris Jericho. He got a couple of the other things wrong when it came to that, but doesn't matter. Still got 2 points for that, because I'm doing individual things instead of you have to guess the whole final 4 correctly. It's fair enough that way. Nobody really guesses all the final 4. He guessed Mojo Rawley's direct entrance point, which I don't know how you guessed Mojo Rawley out of all the people, at number 4. He also guessed a direct hit for Ty Dillinger at number 10. A lot of people did that, and I thought that they were going to screw us over with that, so that's why I didn't go with it. He guessed Dean Ambrose correctly at number 12. He had a margin hit of Bray Wyatt at 20, because Bray Wyatt came out at 21. He had a margin hit for Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. He was just slightly off with those 2. He guessed Lesnar at 25, Goldberg at 27. Lesnar came out at 26 and Goldberg at 28. So if you shift those 2, 1 over a piece, he would have gotten those direct hits too. And he got The Undertaker correct at 29. So he would have had a potential 4 more points for Goldberg and another 4 more points for Lesnar if he would have gotten them just slightly over a little bit, but he won nonetheless. Next highest up was Silent with a Doom with 26 points. Then it was Dominic Retberg with 25. And then if I'm going down this list and double checking one more time to make sure that I don't have anybody in the wrong spot here, then it was Bobby Lesnar, G86 with 21, Billy P with 20, Jacob with 18, Declan with 17, Callum with 16, etc., etc., etc. So congrats to Kalen. You win, you fucker. And myself and Ross are at the very, very bottom of this. This might have been the worst predictions contest that I've ever pulled when it comes to my own guesses. I've gotten them right in the past. I've gotten some pretty good guesses in the past, but man, I sucked balls this time around. Awful. So that is the Royal Rumble predictions contest. I liked how we did it this time around. I think that that's how we're going to do that in the future for next year, unless something crazier happens next year, then who knows. But remember this when it comes down to the end of the year awards. If you really enjoyed it and you want to be a part of any other kind of tournament contest sort of a thing like this, then one thing to keep in mind is that we're going to be doing that Smark Madness tournament. That's going to have things where you guys can vote. And if you're not a part of the Mega Maniacs and you don't know anything about being a part of the preliminary stuff when it comes to that, join the Mega Maniacs. That's where I'm going to be talking about it more. But the last topic that we are going to be going through tonight is talking about Samoa Joe. I didn't get a chance to talk about this really because he made his debut on the main roster on Monday Night Raw at the very end of the night by attacking Seth Rollins. And this is something I think we got to talk about. Now, I know that I'm probably going to be repeating some of this stuff over the next couple of weeks when it comes to the Elimination Chamber and when it comes to Fastlane and WrestleMania and everything like that. But right now, why not take a snapshot of what's going on in my brain at the moment? Samoa Joe, I thought, was going to be popping up on SmackDown. I thought it was such a good idea to have him go up against John Cena, and then we could get AJ Styles to get a decent match at WrestleMania against The Undertaker or some other factor in like that. And the fact that Samoa Joe just popped up on Monday Night Raw makes me so concerned about what they're going to do for WrestleMania now because, and I know this is like, oh, Tony's negative all the time and all that kind of stuff, but think about it. Samoa Joe is not going to fight Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. It's going to be Triple H. So we know Seth Rollins is not going to be Samoa Joe's opponent. They're probably going to fight at Fastlane because that would be a means to get Seth Rollins on the card, and Samoa Joe clearly has some kind of a connection with Triple H, and then that way they can do that kind of a match. Triple H can screw Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe wins, and then Seth Rollins bitches and complains the next night on Raw. They announce a match at WrestleMania, that kind of a thing. But what does Samoa Joe do after that? On the Monday Night Raw roster right now, Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens have to feud with each other. And it seems like The Undertaker is going to be Roman Reigns' opponent, which, by the way, if he's going to do that, then it probably means we're going to get Shane McMahon versus AJ Styles, and that sucks balls. I don't want to see Orton Wyatt. I don't want to see John Cena, Baron Corbin. Even though I like Baron Corbin and I like John Cena, that's not a WrestleMania match. And I would rather see that for the title than to see the Orton Wyatt one. But AJ Styles and Shane McMahon is stupid to me. And that doesn't give The Miz a good enough thing to do, which I really wish that they would have gone with the Shane McMahon Miz thing, because that to me at least brings in the Daniel Bryan thing. But there's not many people on SmackDown. You need people on both shows to be able to balance things out. And then you look at Samoa Joe, and he would have been a great fit for SmackDown. But now, if you look on him on Monday Night Raw, who does he have to face? Braun Strowman is a heel. Samoa Joe is a heel. Are they going to do heel Joe versus heel Strowman? Are they going to do Samoa Joe against Sami Zayn for the United States Championship or something? That's not really all that great. He deserved a better match in my mind. Are you going to do Samoa Joe and Braun Strowman in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal? Well, both guys deserve better than that, too. Is Finn Balor coming back and you're just going to do Finn Balor, Samoa Joe again? Well, if that's the case, I've seen it a bunch of times on NXT. And I'd rather see Finn Balor go up against AJ Styles if that were the case. So just move him over to SmackDown. It's confusing the hell out of me because I'm looking at the situation and I'm thinking, yeah, it's cool that Samoa Joe attacked Seth Rollins on Raw. And a lot of people are like, oh, if you didn't mark out, you're not really a good fan of that. What, you should just take the positive that he's on the main roster now, whatever like that. I agree. It is a positive he's on the main roster. But knowing that they have such weird varieties of plans already put in motion for WrestleMania, I can't see Samoa Joe getting any decent match. At least on the Monday Night Raw side of things. And if they put him on the SmackDown side of things, why have him attack Seth Rollins on Monday Night Raw? So I'm really getting nervous that this is a telltale sign that we're going to get 5 weird-ass matches at WrestleMania that never had any kind of justification behind them at all, or we've seen before, or they're just really not all that interesting, like Shane McMahon versus AJ Styles, or Joe versus Finn Balor again, or Joe being pushed down the card and he's fighting fucking Goldust or something. Like, I don't know, man. I really am getting sour on this year's WrestleMania so much, and I wasn't until Randy Orton won that Royal Rumble. That fucked everything up as far as potential plans here. And it's going to get even worse, too. If we have Goldberg or Roman Reigns win that Universal Championship, then I'm going to be beyond annoyed. Because then you're just putting the title on people in the last minute to switch things around, change things up because you only want those specific people to be the champions at WrestleMania and only at WrestleMania. Goldberg and Lesnar for the title is stupid. Those two sell itself just by having the match, period. And you don't need to have Roman Reigns versus Undertaker at WrestleMania for the title because those two sell themselves on that. Now, Chris Jericho versus Kevin Owens, yeah, the feud does sell itself based off the fact that Team Jericho is so popular, but that is more worthy of a title match. And then Samoa Joe, if he's not going to get some kind of a decent match after doing something so important like fighting Seth Rollins, then you just took a guy from the main event level of NXT, boosted him straight up to the main event level heading into WrestleMania, but before you made a match at WrestleMania, you trashed him all the way down again. And I can't see any potential match on the WrestleMania card for Monday Night Raw happening that doesn't screw over Samoa Joe or Braun Strowman at this point. Both guys deserve so much more than to just be cogs in the wheel. And they're probably going to be. I could see Samoa Joe being the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner, and that's all he does. And I can see some Braun Strowman. What the hell's Braun Strowman going to do? I don't know. It's just, man, I want to be so much happier about this situation, and I can't be because it's great that Joe is in the mix now, but I'm paranoid based off of the way that they're booking everything else, they're going to fuck up his match too. So you had potential for Joe, Strowman, Styles, Cena, and even Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt would have been a great mid-card match. And then you got Owens and Jericho would have been a great Universal title match. Goldberg and Lesnar, Seth Rollins and Triple H. That card would be great. And I think they're going to rearrange everything. They're going to screw it all up. And I'm just paranoid about it now. So I want you guys to reassure me. Give me an idea of what they're going to do with Samoa Joe here. That is good. Not just, well, we'll figure it out and just take the ride, and if WWE screws it up, then you're going to watch it anyway, aren't you, Tony? Yeah, I am, but I'm not going to enjoy it. And then I'll bitch and complain, and then they'll get more negative reviews, and then next year, going into WrestleMania, I'll sit there and go, well, they fucked up the last couple of ones, they're going to fuck up this one too, and that kind of a thing. So I want you to make me feel better about this, because right now, Samoa Joe is looking like he could be in a great spot for Fastlane, and a horrible spot the day after Fastlane. And I really don't want that to happen. I think he's been doing such a good job with NXT, and he deserves so much better than that. So those are the hot tags for this week, everybody. Thank you all for listening. I want you to leave your comments below, as I've mentioned a couple different times before. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe, and also hit that little bell icon so you get the notifications when I post these videos up. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure that you check the website for everything else that's coming up this week, as well as the normal articles that we post throughout the weekly updates and, all the other things like that. Not just the channel stuff, but the channel things that are going to be coming are as follows. We have the Ask Him coming up next. All the IWC outreach stuff is going to be sometime Wednesday afternoon or so. I'm going to actually record that right when this starts processing, when I start making this video. So I'm going to get that out of the way. I'm also going to be recording a Sporkle Elimination Chamber quiz in maybe an hour or so after I'm doing this, but you guys won't see that until probably Thursday. And then on Friday, I'm hoping to be able to record a Call the Spot for the 5 challengers for the Elimination Chamber match. So I don't know who's going to be a part of that one. I'm going to be doing, obviously, the Sporkle quiz on my own and the IWC outreach on my own. But I'm going to try to get as many people as I can to do the Call the Spot, because that's always more interesting when we go back and forth instead of me just reading everything out myself. But we'll see when it comes down to it. That's going to be Friday. You'll see that Saturday morning or Friday night or whatever. And that's what we've got for this week. For next week, we're going to be doing our Elimination Chamber predictions, because that's coming up just right that damn fast. Then, obviously, the post show for that. And then I don't really know. Then we're getting into this weird period in February and March where things are kind of flexible, but I don't have a whole lot of options of what things I can do. We're going to be doing at least a mailbag in February and a mailbag in March. I don't know when. I know I'm going to be doing, obviously, Fastlane predictions and the Fastlane post-show and a fantasy booking for WrestleMania, but there's still flexibility and time and stuff to figure out some of the other plans. So if there's anything you guys specifically want us to do, then leave your comments below with your suggestions. I'll try to work that in and try to figure out any way that I can do as many different things as possible, whether it's on the 15th, the 22nd, the 15th of March, etc., etc. So that's it for the hot tags for this week, everybody. And I will see you next time. This has been another Smark Out moment, and I'm being counted out.